Hey guys, so I just wanted to kind of give my thoughts on the game now since I have about 73 hours, and I wanted to start with this intro scene because this intro scene is something I think that really kind of shines in the game. It kind of promotes a sense of wonder, it gives you all the different environments that you go through in the game, and how they're all really unique, and the world feels immersive and really well put together. They clearly put a lot of time into thinking how these future civilizations would kind of end up if they basically crash landed on a planet where they had no other choice but to end up there. Uh, so I wanted to go ahead and get into that. And so just some initial impressions of the game that I have that I want to share with you guys is that I enjoy the game. I think it's a good game. Would I buy it again? Absolutely. I did buy it at a discounted price. I got it on Green Man Gaming for like 20% off. But if I had paid full price, I would not feel bad about it. I would not have any regrets whatsoever. But just kind of to start off, I want to talk about kind of some of the environmental details and storytelling that they have going on in the game. And so I'm going to go ahead and start off by talking about the story. I think the story of the game was much better than I expected. I kind of expected it as a new IP from a public or from a developer that I haven't heard of before. I just was not expecting that much from it, but it very pleasantly delivered more. There were some moments in the story where I was just kind of like scratching my head as to why what was happening. But overall, I would say the story was a pleasant experience and something that I was invested in. I think the main character was very sassy. And I thought his writing was passable, at least much better than I had expected, especially from the demo. There were some high points and low points of the game, but I'm traveling to Trenchtown now because I think Trenchtown is just an example of one of those areas where I really like the environment. I really think the environment here tells a story, and kind of helps you feel immersed in the game. And so as you can see, like there's guards walking around, there's ambient noises in the background of things that are happening. There's like mechanic depots, and just walking around the town, it feels like this is a real place that you would see in a future where we had crash landed on a planet that had mysterious things happening on it. And you can kind of feel the hopelessness during the main story. This is being bombarded, actually, and it's called Trenchtown. It's a trench. It's being bombarded by the enemy, and you can kind of see that, like, just running through the environment. You can feel just how war-torn this place is and how devastated the people that live here are. And I think that's something that they did very well on doing. And then, like, there's confusing places to me like this. It really does feel like the game was rushed to me because, like, I feel like there should be something back there. I feel like there should be stories with these guys here. In the first area that you go to, there's like a group of bandits that live there. And you kind of interact with them in the beginning of the story, but nothing really ever happens with them. It feels like there was a lot of ideas that the maybe the storyboard artists in the game kind of wanted to go with, but maybe didn't have the time or budget to complete. And that's kind of sad to me. I wish they. My intuition is that they were kind of rushed on delivering, and so they maybe didn't get to do as much as they wanted to with it, and that is unfortunate. But as for that, the story itself was, as I said, pretty good. It was better than I expected. You run through each of these zones. Each of these zones has its own personality. It tells its own story, and it feels really unique. As far as the environmental variety in the game, it's exceptional. And I think all of the areas are well designed, and they were all interesting. Every time I was excited to venture to a new location and see what was going to be next in store for me. And that's pretty much that. I mean, the story itself is going through the hub and spoke system, very similar to Path of Exile, where you enter and you basically have a single town where you go into, and then you go do missions until you fight a boss. That's exactly what's happening in Outriders, is you go through each of these zones, and then you fight a boss at some point during the zone, and you have a big boss fight. And it's a good system. I have nothing wrong or nothing bad to say about that system, but I do feel like there's a missed opportunity in the way that at least the campaign is designed with the world tiers. In my own opinion, the world tiers was cool before I got to the end game and had to deal with challenge tiers. It's confusing that they have both a world tier system and a challenge tier system, especially because it does not take that much time to hit CT15. Once you actually have a build running and stuff, clearing CT15 content is pretty easy. And it's just not the hardest thing in the world. The only thing that I could see really going forward with this is if maybe you were doing speed runs, and you were trying to get the lowest time on a mission. And I mean, fair enough, that is cool. I hope that's something that the developers are considering supporting in the future. I think that the game desperately needs something like that. But that's also why I'm disappointed at the world tier system, because I think the way that they implemented the world tier system, I think the game would have been better off going with something where there wasn't any world tier system in the game. You just had the levels, and you were challenged as you progressed through the levels. And you had to have a build that would at least get you through there. Maybe not complete by the end of the game, but at least get you through the main campaign of the game before you get to the expeditions. That way they could promote something similar to racing in Path of Exile or Diablo or something, where people are trying to be the first to hit maps, first to hit the max level. Things like that I think are really fun in a game of this type, where it's basically an action RPG where you're focusing on your builds and trying to promote a variety of builds and stuff. I think there was a lot of opportunity for them to do that in this game. And they just kind of didn't go with that, which is surprising to me. But I kind of understand why. Well, part of me understands why, but I don't know. Overall, it feels like the game's development was rushed, and there was a lot of things that they wanted to do but didn't do. But if they were gonna have to cut out some things and plan on like focused stuff for the end game, I think that would have been a great way to maximize the replayability of the game without having to rely on just farming the same areas over and over again. Because like me as a Path of Exile player that plays almost exclusively hardcore, usually hardcore solo self-bound, where I don't have anybody to trade with or play with, I really enjoy trying like a new build every season, and whenever I die, I usually like try something else. I like to try new things and see what I can come up with. And I think there was a really good opportunity for them here to try something like that, but they kind of missed the ball on that one, and it's disappointing. I think they have a pretty easy way forward to introduce something like that into the game for competitive racing and stuff. And that's something I'd like to see, but it's not currently there, and so that's kind of disappointing to me right now. Going through these expeditions and stuff, as you can see right here, what I'm coming up to, I'm being timed here, and it really bothers me. I've done this mission dozens of times. Why do I need to see this cutscene again? I know what happens. Why is there not this cutscene at other pillars? Like, I don't know. It doesn't make sense to me. I think they need to remove some of those unnecessary elements when you're in a time trial, and just focus on, like, I don't need to see the same cinematic for the same boss that I've killed 3 dozen times. Like, I know what's happening. Please just let me try to minimize my time here, you know? And that's just kind of some of the nitpicks I have for the endgame. There's not a lot of content variety. All of these expeditions basically have mob wave phases. You kill like a mini boss, you clear one of these pillars, and that's pretty much it. It's kind of disappointing. I don't really have any gripes with it though. I mean, the game's brand new. I think that's something they could easily fix by adding more DLC and stuff, but it's just kind of underwhelming with the state that it's in right now. Without having access to any leaderboards and stuff, and fair enough, with the game having just launched, I'm sure there's probably going to be like hackers and stuff. If they had leaderboards, there'd probably just be people up there with insane times, having just clear the content in ways that no actual player that was playing legitimately could have, and that might be something that they wanted to try to avoid whenever the game is still new and they have to figure those things out. But I do hope that they add things. This is in the list of things that aren't in the game that I would really like to see in the game. And I think it would greatly improve the experience of the game. And like going back to the replayability factor, obviously there's a pretty good amount of replayability in the end game. You're not going to get hundreds of hours out of the game unless you really just want to absolutely 100% everything, play every class, master every class, get all the legendaries, have every build unlocked to you. But I don't even think you really have enough inventory space for that. And so, I mean, I don't know. It's complicated how I think about it, because whenever they were selling the game, whenever they were marketing the game, they said that this was going to be a fully released game. There's not going to be any live service content. There's not going to be any microtransactions. And fair enough, there's not any microtransactions in the game. And so, on one hand, I'm really excited about that, because we don't often get to see games that don't have all these predatory microtransactions and stuff that are trying to get you to dump your wallet just to play them. And that's nice, but I also think it was kind of a missed opportunity. Path of Exile, for example, has the supporter packs that they have every season, and a lot of people pick those up. They have stash tabs, which are a little bit pay to win, but I mean, there's been people who have reached rank 1 clears in Path of Exile, rank 1 level 100s in solo self-found races that didn't even have stash tabs. So it's definitely possible to play Path of Exile at the highest level without having that kind of stuff. And I think that's something that they could have definitely easily added into Outriders, like just like a legendary stash tab, or like transmogs or something, so that you can change the look of your character if you paid like $1 or something like that. I think that those are fairly fair microtransactions that don't provide any real tangible gameplay benefits that they could have put into the game, and maybe we would see in exchange for having that seasonal content that keeps the game active and alive. Whereas right now, as the game stands, I don't think this game is going to have many players for more than a month or two, because there's just not that much to do on the end game. It is fun. The end game is fun. Don't get me wrong. I've put 73 hours into it as of now. I have no problem with that. In terms of value, I've gotten my money's worth out of the game. But I think there's a good opportunity here for the developers to do more with the game than they currently have, with very little effort, and they would probably make a good amount of money on the side as a result of those changes. And so things like that, like supporting a hardcore mode where you only had one life for your character, and maybe you had to deal with just the gear that you got from that playthrough. You couldn't access any other inventory that you had. I think that would be a fun thing, at least for me, as somebody that plays Path of Exile for that reason. I really like to experiment with new builds, and I don't really feel incentivized in this game to try other builds. Even though I've kind of wanted to play like a Technomancer or something. Technomancer was one of the classes that I wanted to try in the beginning. But as of right now, I'm just not invested in the game enough to really want to re-roll to one of those classes and play the game entirely through again. If there was like a hardcore mode where I was racing against other people to reach the next level or like clear Eye of the Storm or something, then that would be really fun. I would completely do that. I would love to try other classes and stuff and see what I could come up with in there. But that's just not in the game right now, and I think that's a very easy way that the developers could implement some more replayability into their game without having to like go back to the drawing board and spend a lot of money developing new things. I think they could pretty easily, with just what they have, do something like that. And I would like to see that. I'm not sure if they're going to go with that. They haven't announced any DLC plans yet, at least to my knowledge. And so, kind of barring what their future plans for DLC are is whenever we're going to see things like that. And it would be nice to see that kind of thing happen in the game. I would like to see more of Outriders. The game was much better than I thought it was going to be. And that is always a good thing to happen. But there's definitely some missed opportunities. And that's kind of my biggest complaint with the game is if I was going to give the game a rating, I would give it probably like a 7 out of 10, which, I mean, that means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. I would say that's about right on par with the complete average game. I think the game itself is incredibly average. It's not like exceptional. It's not going to win any Game of the Year award, Game of the Year awards, but it's still a good game. I mean, I've played it for 70 hours. I have definitely enjoyed my time with the game. I don't really have any complaints about the value of the game or anything like that. I just would like to see more out of it in the future, and I think it didn't quite live up to the potential that the game has. So that's pretty much my final verdict on the game. It's a good It's a good game. I would absolutely buy it again, having the knowledge that I have now of having played through it. I think the game was a fair value. The developers gave exactly what they promised. And it's very rare to see a game without any microtransactions these days, so that's great. But I'm also disappointed because it doesn't have microtransactions, because I think there was a good opportunity here for them to implement like seasonal content where maybe they don't have to have predatory microtransactions, but they could keep the game servers alive enough to release some content for people to play through every few months in a manner that Path of Exile does, and they could promote competitive racing and stuff. Because I'm sure there's people out there right now trying to get the minimum clear times in the game, and that's a very fun, valid way to play the game. Not everybody has to play that way. Obviously, they don't have to force people into these systems, but if they're trying to maximize their replayability without having to develop a bunch of new content, that's a very good way to go about it. And I'm just a little bit disappointed by that, and I feel like they missed opportunities whenever they did that. I know I sound like a broken record now, but that's my thought. Is the game's good, but there's missed opportunities, and I don't think I've ever gotten any loot on video that I've recorded, but that's fair enough. We don't always expect the best. But yeah, final opinion of the game, it's a good game. I have absolutely no regrets about my purchase. I would recommend this if you have friends or something, you want to maybe knock 50, 60 hours of your time. Maybe if you're just playing super casually, not really, you don't care about getting all the gear and stuff in the game, then this is a good game for you to pick up if you don't have anything to do for a couple weeks or something. I think this game would definitely last the average player 2 or 3 weeks of at least like maybe playing 5 or 6 hours a day, I would say you'd be doing pretty well at that time. But if you're looking for something like super hardcore that you're going to be practicing for over and over again, right now the systems in the game don't really exist for that. There's not really any reason other than clout to try to minimize your clear times. Obviously, there's problems with them doing that right now because there's probably a bunch of hackers and stuff that would be on the leaderboards, people with broken builds on the leaderboards that need to be rebalanced. But, I mean, that's still something that you can deal with, and you can just remove people if you find out that we're hacking in the runs or something. But I think in the future, if they added that kind of infrastructure to the game, then it would be a much better game. I would also like to see more variety in the gameplay. Obviously, it's a looter shooter. I mean, I'm not really complaining about it, but if they had something like, I remember the first time whenever I was walking through, what's the area called? Oh, that's not what I wanted to do. Okay. Yeah. Whenever I was walking through Rift Town, and I exited Rift Town into the front line, and there were the tanks on the hill that were shooting out, and there was enemy fire coming in. Like, that got me really excited at the prospect that there might be like a tank mission or something in the game. And going through the story, it kind of seems like there might have been areas like out here in the desert where they could have added something like that, and it would have been really fun. But they just didn't have that. And I mean, fair enough. It doesn't. Not every game has to be like a perfect 10 out of 10 narrative story experience, but that would have been a fun little addition if there were more like maybe mini games or something like that you could do outside of basically the content in this game is clearing the missions and then like doing the hunt quests and stuff, which are just clearing missions. That's all there really is in the game. So that is my opinion of the game. Final verdict, 7 out of 10. Would I recommend it? Absolutely, especially if you have some friends and you guys are just looking to waste a couple of weeks while you're waiting for something else to come out. I do think there's a lot of potential in the future for them to do a lot more with the game than what's currently in here, but we will see as to their future plans and how they're going to go about that, if they have future plans at all. I don't think they've said anything about it so far. All I know is they said that this was going to be a complete game whenever it ships, and they delivered on that, so more power to them for that. But I would like to see more of the game in the future, or more of the franchise Outriders, and that's all I have for that. But I do kind of want to talk about some more future plans for the channel. I do plan on doing a how to create your own build guide that kind of goes over just some of the concepts that you want to think about if you're going to create your own build for a game. And whenever I'm doing that, I might try to do that with a melee build that I've been thinking about doing, because I really think a melee build in this game would be a fun thing to play with. I haven't quite got all the gear for it, but I do have some. And so I might do something like that to try to kind of encourage people into thinking about the concepts that you do whenever you're, or the concepts that you go through whenever you're trying to create your own build. And I also kind of want to branch the channel out more. I've been really happy that people like seeing the Outriders guidance stuff that I've posted. I really was not expecting them to be as popular as they were. But I also don't want to be locked into being an Outriders channel. I myself typically don't play games for more than 2 or 3 weeks at a time. I like to do a lot of variety in my games. And there's other things that I kind of have been thinking about streaming too. I know there was a podcast that I wanted to do with some friends based on a book that I really like. What's it called? I can't think of the name of it right now, but yeah, there was like a podcast where it was going to go over events of, or no, I remember the name of the book now. It was Ordinary Popular Delusions and the Madness of Crowds. A very famous, like, philosophical kind of book from the old times, back in, like, I think the 1800s was whenever it was published, that covers things like the Loch Ness Monster and like fairies and stuff like that people would believe in folklore, but never actually existed. And I think a podcast going over things like that would be a fun thing. I have a lot of ideas for something like that. But there's also other channels. I mean, there's a lot of other gaming channels out there that I take a lot of inspiration from. I know today I watched like 5 Kira TV videos on various upcoming games that I was looking at. And he's a small channel, but like that's just like one example of content creators that like I follow that I think have some very interesting thoughts on things. And just in that respect, being a game channel, I mean, that's fair enough. Like, I do like playing games. I play a lot of games, but yeah, I might do some more of that. And then there's like another thing that I really like myself on YouTube. It's a channel called StatQuest with John Starmer, and it's just a really fun way of presenting statistical concepts. Normally, before the pandemic, I was a grad student, and I graduated right before the pandemic with a master's in computer science. But I've been trying to look for jobs in computational biology because most of my work was focused on machine learning and bioinformatics. And I haven't really been able to do anything with that recently, but I also really like the educational side of things. And so I've been thinking about doing maybe some programming streams because I used to teach C++ to some of my students. And I also really like, if you ever look at John Starmer's channel, StatQuest, he just has a really fun, unique way of kind of explaining some really advanced concepts that if you're looking at it in literature, it's very hard to understand, but the way that he explains it just so clear and so concise that it's really easy to follow. So something like that might be in the works if people are interested in that kind of thing. We'll see. I'm really kind of I don't know what I want to do with the channel. Obviously, I like the fact that people like the Outriders videos, but I do want to branch out. And as a diverse person, it's very hard for me to lock myself into just kind of one way of thinking about going in my channel direction. So I don't really just want to be one thing whenever I'm thinking about posting a video. So that's what I'm doing right now. But if there's anything in the future, anything that I mentioned here that might sound interesting to you guys, let me know. And I will think about maybe putting some effort into doing that and maybe have a little bit better production quality than me just sitting at a mic rambling for 30 minutes. But yeah, we'll see. Until then, this is going to be it for me.